Namaste. Welcome to the final session of this course, First Step into Bhagavad Gita. As you all know, this is part of a larger program called Gita Odyssey. The objective of this program is to demystify and take the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita into our daily life. Sometimes we cannot get connected with Gita because of the language used, because of the method of teachings, etc. Our objective was to bridge that gap. We all know that Bhagavad Gita is a transformational textbook which can completely transform a human being, taking to his or her highest potential. But sometimes there are a lot of other factors which prevents an ordinary person in 21st century, especially a family person, getting connected with the Gita. So the objective of this program is to help you to get connected with this transformative book. So the first step is the first book. Essentially talks about a few things. We started by clearly defining some of the foundations required for a meaningful study. To be very specific, we were trying to address why, what, and how. Why should I study Bhagavad Gita in the 21st century? Is it worth to explore this textbook, or should I just study positive psychology and take care of my problem? So why should we study Bhagavad Gita? We discussed. And we talked about what is this Bhagavad Gita. Usually people understand this as a religious textbook. So we tried to explain what is Bhagavad Gita. And the third portion is we talked about how one should study the Bhagavad Gita. So we had all those discussion, and also we talked about the myths and sometimes misinterpretations. And we talked about the core of the Bhagavad Gita, which is Dharma. We also saw a brief history of the Bhagavad Gita. This is the first portion we covered. And then we started discussing about the Gita Dhyanam, 9 meditative shlokas, which helps us to connect with the Bhagavad Gita. So we went shloka by shloka analysis, and we had a lot of good discussion at that point of time. After that, we went to chapter 1, and we had a shloka by shloka analysis of all the 47 shlokas. We saw the shlokas from two different angles, one from a subjective perspective, which is as a battle happening inside, and also from the objective perspective, which is from the Mahabharata battle perspective. So today, what we propose to do is we will have a quick summary of the chapter 1, and probably we will open it up 30 minutes. We will have the summary, and we will talk about 3 shlokas. If you want a takeaway, you can focus on 3 shlokas to stay connected with this chapter 1. So we will review that, and after that, we will open up the floor. And what we request to do is each one of us, what is your understanding of chapter 1? Because there is nothing to be worried, because you don't need to worry about that. We won't record it, we won't publish it. So it's so our own understanding, what exactly is chapter 1? Because this discussion is going to help us to properly ground how we structure the chapter 2 session, which will start from September. So without any further delay, let me just give a few thoughts on the summary, and then we will review 3 shlokas, and after that we can go to this open discussion. And then before we close, we will talk about what we do between now and September. This is the agenda. So let's get started. Let's quickly cover a few points. We already talked about all these points. So when you look at Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita has a beautiful structure. The first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita talks about the problem statement of the Bhagavad Gita. Why should I study Bhagavad Gita? Am I studying Bhagavad Gita for just a little bit peace and mental consolation? Yes, Bhagavad Gita is going to give that, but it addresses a larger problem of our life. So what exactly is the problem addressed by Bhagavad Gita? That is the scope of chapter 1. And that is what we saw in the entire chapter 1. And upcoming chapters, chapter 2, which we will study from September, it is going to give an end-to-end summary or end-to-end preview of the teachings ahead. So what exactly is the teaching? How Bhagavad Gita is addressing human problem? What are all the topics covered in the Bhagavad Gita is discussed in chapter 2. And from chapter 3 to chapter 17, Krishna takes up each of the topics he mentioned in chapter 2 and elaborate that. That is the style. And finally, on chapter 18, he recaps the entire teaching. So this is a beautiful style followed in the ancient scriptures. It is called as Samchepa, Vichepa, Samchepa. So it's like a news headline, news bulletin, right? So initially you have a headline, and then you have a detailed elaboration of each of the points, and then finally a recap. This is the style of the modern communication. So this is what it is. So this is the structure of the Bhagavad Gita. So we talked about that. And let's quickly see the summary of the Bhagavad Gita. So this Bhagavad Gita, we know that it is presented in the context of a civil war that happened in ancient India. But the problem addressed by the Bhagavad Gita is not a typical problem of Arjuna. Arjuna, a distinguished warrior, he was compelled to engage in a battle, in a civil war. As part of his duty, what he was very much skilled, he was determined, and he get into the war front, and the situational pressure overpowers him. This is the context. But let's remove the context and the message. The same problem can happen to each one of us in the life battles we face, in our professional journey, in our relationship journey, in our day-to-day engagement with the environment, people, situation. This problem can come to us. When a situation overpowers us, the Arjuna problem starts. This is the context of the Bhagavad Gita. And in ancient time, right, all the Upanishad teachings, all these teachings were given in a serene setting, calm settings. So people used to think that spirituality is not for the actively engaged people, or spirituality is not good to solve our day-to-day problem. And to dismiss that myth, the Maharshi Vyasa cleverly placed in the midst of a civil war, because our problems are nothing compared to the problem Arjuna had to face, because he had to engage a war with his own kith and kin, his own people, and that's a civil war. So his problem is 10 times or 100 times more than the problem you and I have to face. And to that person, this teaching is given. And that this teaching has transformed that person. This teaching has given clarity to that person. And that is where the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita. And again, the Bhagavad Gita was not given to address Arjuna's problem. The Bhagavad Gita is given to address the human problem. Bhagavad Krishna never talked, why should you engage in a war? Is the war is right or wrong? He didn't say anything. But he said that human beings are subjected to suffering. Human beings are subjected to problem. Human beings are subjected to emotional breakdown. Situation may vary, but the problem will stay constant. The same problem was there for Arjuna 5,000 years back. And that same problem is there even for us in Manhattan. So the same problem statement, that human being is subjected to sorrow, human being is subjected to suffering, human being is subjected to be overtaken by the situational pressure. That is the problem addressed by Bhagavad Gita. So our request is, if you look at the Bhagavad Gita objectively as Arjuna's problem, we will not get Bhagavad Gita. You have to relate Bhagavad Gita with our own day-to-day life. When I go and face a challenge right from eating habit, healthy lifestyle, dealing with a family situation, dealing with a situation at work, Arjuna's problem started manifesting. And that is the situations where Krishna's teaching can help us. It can help us in our relationship. It can help us in our family. It can help us in our productivity. It can help us in our professional life. So this is how we should relate Bhagavad Gita. So this is the context, and we need to make sure that we are not getting stuck in the context. And this is a battlefield of life lesson. This is unconventional settings for spiritual wisdom. It breaks all the stereotype spirituality, which gives you teachings in a calm and serene environment. So this is what we saw this in detail. And also we need to understand that whenever there is a battle, it cannot be an external battle alone. There is a battle that happens inside. There is an Arjuna inside represented by self-control. Pandavas and Kauravas are inside, representing the destructive emotions as well as the athar, meaning the dharmic thoughts and emotions. So this, we need to consider the Bhagavad Gita as a battle within. So this Bhagavad Gita's problem, you could see that in the study of, meaning a student struggling to cope up with his exam, a professional struggling to cope up with the work pressure or peer pressure, a mother, meaning a homemaker, that problem can happen. It can happen to a professional. So this problem is there every day in every situation. And this can affect our academic performance under pressure. That's a classic example of Arjuna's problem. Domestic challenges and unexpected responses from spouses, that's a problem. Arjuna's problem can happen. Public speaking hurdles like composure, your own stability in crisis, this can happen. So wherever there is a life situation, Arjuna's problem happens. And this will affect our composure. We feel helplessness. We feel worry, anxiety, and stress. We react in anger contrary to personal dignity. All these are manifestations of Arjuna's problems. This is a universal problem. And we need to relate our problems with Arjuna's problem. And this is a fundamental human challenge. What is that human challenge? Inappropriate emotions and thoughts, not proportional to circumstances. This can disturb our mental state. And when that balanced mental state is disturbed, right, we perceive fact not properly. We feel we feel that the situation is completely out of our control, and we cannot analyze the situation based upon the knowledge in hand, and we cannot execute the strategies to get out of that situation. This is Arjuna's problem, and we should just focus on this. So, and the impact of Arjuna's problem is we cannot work under pressure. We feel helpless. We feel, in spite of our knowledge and wisdom, we feel that the situation always take control over us, and we feel that inadequacy. And this is a simple representation of Arjuna's problem. Whenever there is a challenge happen, we perceive it, and the emotional and thinking brain will react to it. And as a result, what is going to happen? We cannot control, because we interpret the situation as something else, and it can lead us to depression and delusion. So this destructive emotions and thoughts will disturb our mental equilibrium and make us victim in front of the situation. This is the simple definition of Arjuna's problem. And this is the essence of chapter 1. Because identification of the problem is the first step towards the solution. So we need to understand that even though we know a lot of things, when the situation goes out of our hand, we cannot take control. We cannot use the knowledge in our hand. So utilizing the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, we can approach the life in a very, very meaning easy way, very diligently. So a beautiful quote from Paramahamsa Yogananda. He says, find out who you are, because you want to make yourself what you ought to be. So let me pause here and request Avanti to share any opening thoughts. Otherwise, we will three shlokas, and in next 15 minutes, we will cover that, and then we can use the next 45 minutes, 45 minutes for the discussions.
Namaskar. So basically, why have we done these 21 sessions? If you all have actually read the book and gotten to the end of the book, there is a whole promise that we have made in that book, that we will not just write a book and leave it. Like most of the time, books are just written and it is for the, people to understand and to get into it. But we've promised that holding your hand, those are the words actually, we will guide you through what we have written. So these 21 sessions have been an effort to take you through the entire book, so that now when you pick up the book to read it, even when these classes are over, you will not be lost, because you can remember what we've said. Some of our classes have been very dramatized and dramatic. And second thing is, you can always go back to all of these 21 sessions are on YouTube. So you can go back on that to revise. So that was our promise. Rajesh talked about Dhyana Shloka, which we have covered. It's long ago, like right in the beginning. So you all must have even forgotten that Dhyana Shloka exists. But please go back to Dhyana Shloka. And I said it at that time as well. I'm reiterating here please, please, please pick up at least one shloka in that dhyana shloka, which the meaning of which sits with you the best. Learn it up by heart and recite it every day before you open the Bhagavad Gita. We've already explained why Dhyana Shloka is necessary, but I absolutely feel it is very necessary for any Gita sadhak to at least connect with one shloka of that entire Dhyana Shloka list that we have and chant it to develop a deeper meaning and understanding of the Bhagavad Gita as you go along. So go back to that, pick one shloka. If you have any problem in chanting it or understanding it better or connecting it to yourself, we are available all the time. Even if these classes end, the group is going to be on, the chat group, and you have our numbers. So please approach us and we can help you with that. The Bhagavad Gita, as we said, if you literally translate it, loosely translate it, it is the song of the Lord. So remember, just as we finish this chapter 1, now we're going to get into hardcore philosophy as we go forward. Please remember, it is the song of the Lord. And that itself, the translation itself has an instruction to humanity. Treat this life with a little bit of lightness. Give a little bit of elbow room. Don't get so entangled that this song of Lord, which is supposed to be the song of our life, becomes a bane of our life. So in that very translation, we have an instruction, take life lightly. And how are you able to take life lightly? When you are able to implement these teachings nicely. That's one thing that I wanted to remind all of us about. Another thing is that we talk about it when we come to verse 1, that the Bhagavad Gita starts and ends with dharma. It begins with dharma and ends with mama, the words. Dharma means, we will study what dharma means. It means a lot of things. And mama means mine. But essentially what it means is my essential being. So the entire Bhagavad Gita is teaching us about our entire being, not just as individuals, me Avanti, he Rajesh ji, you Sashi, you Gina, not just individuals. It's as a composite whole, as an individual jiva, and what is it that's holding all of us together. So Bhagavad Gita gives us that entire spectrum to understand fully so that we are able to navigate our life better. And when we get into theories of reincarnations and all that, it becomes a bit more serious, the study, because we understand that this is not the end. There's going to be more to it, So we are able to navigate our life much better. We'll come to this when we come to the dharma portion, but essentially, it will teach you why you are here. At least begin to investigate why you are here. What is that has brought you specifically into being? And then as we are over here, we gather so many other things along with it. We are here individually, but in no time we have husband, we have wife, we have children, we have this. Then we develop all these secondary dharmas towards them. So it teaches us those, it beautifully, Nishitta Dharma, Niyatam Karma, what is our Niyatam Karma, what's our Nitya Karma, what is our Naimitika Karma, what beautiful instructions are there. So we are able to, first of all, understand our own nature, whatever we have gathered, how to deal with that, and ultimately how to rise above all of this and connect with our essential being, which we right now are saying is God Almighty. So when we understand it like this, we know what to expect after chapter 1. The Bhagavad Gita is the very nucleus of the Mahabharata. If you take the Bhagavad Gita out of the Mahabharata, it will be another Harry Potter. So what makes the Mahabharata as sacred as it is, it's the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. And now why Mahabharata? Because it is said that whatever is in the Mahabharata has happened, is happening, and will continue to happen forever. And it is also said that what is not there in the Mahabharata will never be there in the world. So when you look at it like that, you understand that the entire trajectory of human life and of human existence is animated through stories, through a web of stories of different characters and put forth before us, so that through those characters, we are exposed to our own hidden psyche, our own and everybody else's. So that makes leading life much, much easier. And then now what we have to remember before we go forward is what has brought us to this. So like Rajesh ji said, the very first chapter introduces us to ourselves. Why? Because it introduces, it exposes, it opens up the entire human psyche for us. So very important. First chapter is often not, when people take Gita, Parayan and all that, they drop the first chapter. They start from chapter 2. Some of them start from chapter 2, verse 10. You know, that shouldn't be done, because as we have seen and the way we've studied it, it's the most beautiful mirror that can be presented before us to understand where we go wrong over here. So these are a few things to remember before we go forward to chapter 2. Keep reiterating these ideas in your head. Come back to especially this session, to the summary, and reread the book. Try and go through the session so that chapter 2 will be able to percolate much easier into your system.
Now, there are 47 shlokas. What we try to do with every chapter is we will try to pick a few shlokas, 2 to 3 shlokas. You can keep an eye on, because this helps you to stay connected with the message of that chapter. So here we picked 3 shlokas. Just let's try to quickly go over that. First, shloka 1. Chapter 1, shloka 1. Let's listen.
धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय.
So the very first shloka of the Bhagavad Gita, it's a question by Dhritarashtra. Without that question, we would not have listened to the Gita. Obviously, Krishna would have talked to Arjuna, but it would not have been included in the Mahabharata. So this question is very critical. Oh Sanjaya, what is happening in that battlefield of Kurukshetra? So we saw the deeper meaning of this shloka, because this shloka emphasizes the importance of self-observation and self-analysis. This is crucial and critical for spiritual growth. It distinguishes between simply participating and randomly living a life versus living a life with purpose. When you start observing what exactly happening in my life, I always get a chance to correct it. They say, right, monitoring is the first step to control. How do you maintain the speed? You look at the speedometer, and if the speedometer is 90 or 100, you make sure that you keep that to 65. But without looking at paying attention to the speedometer, you will not be able to control the speed. Without checking the blood pressure, obviously you may get some symptoms, but if you don't pay attention to that, that is not going to help. So this shloka, it's an instruction to every spiritual seeker to live the life with or by properly observing what is happening. What is happening in my life? Am I going towards my goal, or am I going in completely opposite direction? So by reflecting on this shloka and by reflecting our actions and monitoring our actions, we can shift from random activities to a meaningful life. This is the first shloka. So please remember this shloka and try to pay attention. Avanti, you want to add any additional thought on this?
On the first shloka, I'll go back to the what are my sons doing and what are, Pandu's sons doing. I think in this first shloka itself, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, how we have slayed that whole thing comes about. So in our own interactions with the world, the less and less we think about ourselves, and the more and more we incorporate the larger picture, the easier and more beautiful you will see your own life becoming. I'll give you 2 examples. One is, there's this beautiful quote that says, when I becomes we, when the letter I becomes the letters W-E, even illness becomes wellness. So just think about that. It's something beautiful to think about, and that's the truth of life. That's one. Second example, I've given it in one of the classes. But in a corporate world, I think a lot of you all are working. So in a corporate world, just try and think, if you're going to your boss for any favors just for yourself, you would be stuttering, you would be stammering, you would be, not really confident, and you may not get what you're asking. But the minute you go as a union leader and ask for the group, the confidence you will be going with and the surety you will be going with, 100% you will get what you want from your boss. So in every endeavor, this first verse, what it has taught me is always think of the whole perspective. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is my family, is me. When you start incorporating that, you're not excluding yourself from the favors you're going to get from life. Because in that we, you are also very much present. But in I, we is not present. Everybody is not present. So just that first thing when Dhritarashtra divides it, and it is consistently done even by Duryodhana, when he divides that, his sons and my sons, they're his own nephews, he kills it, and that's how we kill every chance and every endeavor in our lives. So just something to remember from that one verse.
Dhritara.
You can go, I'll play. You can start your explanation first, Avanti, on this. Let me play the shloka.
Tatashvetaiर्hayairyukte mahati syandane sthitau madhavah pandavaschaiva divyau shankhau pradadhmatuhu.
So to understand this verse, you have to little bit go to verse 13, the way Sanjaya concludes verse 13. And his words were, they all blew, like just in one go, they all blew. All the Kauravas blew their conches, and the sound was very tumultuous. It was almost like just thrown away, a sentence just thrown away, description just thrown away. But when Sanjaya comes to this portion of starting to introduce Krishna and Arjuna and their chariot, you can immediately see a shift in the tone, a softness in the voice. There is absolute reverence, absolute love, quite evident. Now, a question that arises with the shloka is Sanjaya partial? He's supposed to be the impartial witness, the Sakshi. But one thing you have to understand, that even the Sakshi within us will always side the good choices that we make. It's not that it is empowering the good choices. It allows the jiva, it allows the mind, intellect, equipment to make the right choice. But when we do it, the power that we get from an unknown source, which is nothing but that Sakshi, that witness, that conscience within us, is phenomenal. So with that, I believe that though the world is filled with yin and yang, and it is good and bad, and it is dark and bright, I feel that when you are choosing to the best of your ability the right path, you will be supported with an extra power. I think Arnab had asked this question about grace. That is where grace steps in. So that is one thing to remember. So you see that shift in voice when you're looking at this. And the whole description of the chariot, magnificent chariot, drawn with white horses. He's not really, it's called a transferred epithet in English, where when you're trying to describe the person, but you don't have the words to describe the qualities of a person, you use the surroundings to accentuate the qualities of that person. In this case, there are two people, Krishna and Arjuna. So by glorifying the chariot, it's like, you'll always see a beautiful person lives in a very beautiful home. It doesn't have to be a lavish home. It doesn't have to be an extravagant home, but there is a charm and a beauty which reflects. So the home reflects the beauty of the person, and the person accentuates the beauty of the home. So that is what comes about in this particular verse. And for the details of why the chariot was magnificent and what were the significance of the horses, I think we've covered it in the class quite well. So go back to this session of when we have covered verse 14, and you'll understand the significance of the horses and the chariot.
I just wanted to add one more point. This shloka, we picked it as one of the most important shloka because it shows that dual Krishna and Arjuna together. So it is so important that we need to get aligned with that spiritual wisdom. Krishna represents the spiritual wisdom here, and Arjuna represents intense activity. When we are ready to work hard, aligned with that dharma, victory, success is guaranteed. This is the final shloka of the Bhagavad Gita. Wherever there is Yogeshwara Krishna and Partha, Dhanurthara, Yatra Partho Dhanurthara, with your instruments of action, and where there is the wisdom of Yogeshwara, there Vijaya, victory, and Shri, prosperity, is guaranteed. This is the ultimate lifestyle recommended by the Gita. You have to work hard. You have to align with that spiritual wisdom. If you do this, victory and success and peace of mind and happiness is guaranteed. This is what we all want from life. That is why contemplating upon this shloka frequently, each shloka is a meditation. So thus meditating on this shloka is going to give that value. So that is this shloka. Let's go to the third shloka we wanted to cover as the summary, which is the 47th shloka.
Sanjay uvacha evamuktvārjuna sankhye rathopastha upavishat visrajya sasharam chapam shoka samvigna manasaha.
So this shloka is the final shloka of chapter 1. This shows the breakdown of Arjuna in front of the life situation. So this is a situation we all can relate to. When we face a situation in life and trapped by the circumstances, we just fall down. And this shloka is a powerful reminder that even in the most challenging moments, when we surrender this to Krishna or the divinity, inner Krishna, there will be a way out. So this shloka is something that we all need to remember. Even when we go through the most difficult situation in life, understand that there is a way out. Just surrender to Krishna, exactly like Arjuna said. So these are the 3 shlokas. All these 47 shlokas, we can derive brilliant meanings, but we picked up these 3 as we cannot remember all the 47. So if you at least remember these 3 shloka, you will get the essence.
So 47, it's so funny that Arjuna has this one crisis in life. But if you go to see really hand on your heart, if we look at our own lives, every other crisis, small and big in our life, we come to this state. Really, honestly, where we come completely crumble. We think it's the end of the world. It's not so scary with my generation. I don't know how many of you are from my generation, but with the youngsters, it's shocking that everything is a bad day is a bad life. I just can't even. What can't you? If every single instance in your life, you're not able to do this, I'm shocked. So this is something that we have to remember, is that every instant is just something, Krishna says it beautifully, is just something that's going to come to pass. We cannot make it the be all and end all of our existence. If you think back on your life, then there have been so many instances in life which we thought we could never overcome, which we would never get over. Whether it was a heartbreak, it was a job loss, it was a disease, it was an illness, it was a loss of somebody, as gruesome as that. We always thought that, no, this is the end of it. But it is not the end of it. And just now in this last verse, Arjuna has made it the end of his life. What we have to do is we have to be one step ahead of Arjuna. We should remember this verse all the time when we come to those dead ends in our life, which are not going to stop no matter how enlightened we become. Till we are on this human plane, there's going to be a continuous onslaught, one after the other. Kabhi khushi, kabhi gum. You'll have seen that movie, heard that song. So it's never going to be a one kind of a straight line. So we should always remember that this state, which Arjuna is, which we bring ourselves either mentally, emotionally, intellectually, physically, or spiritually, we cannot let it happen. Yes, you will say Arjuna had Krishna by his side, but we have the Bhagavad Gita in our hand continuously by our bed. It should be by the bed. First thing you wake up in the morning, if you start reading and these teachings start, really getting into your whole being, you'll understand that you don't have to make this a reality of your life, which currently you are making. So very important verse to remember. Every time you are down, come back to this and say, even Arjuna dropped his bow and arrow. Even Arjuna slumped down on the floor. Even Arjuna thought that he couldn't take one step further, but he did. Why? Because he had these teachings and we have these teachings.